Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Devongunsmith Diaries. Now this is a nice Browning Herschel FN B26 Liege from 1978. It's got a fair few things that need sorting out on it. Let's get into it. If you enjoy the content, don't forget, like, subscribe and click the notification bell. Okay, so there's a few things specifically. Fore-end is from another gun, and there's some scoring going on here, and this is in need of stripping and matching to the rear. Butt plate needs grinding on, a bit of work on the stock, some touch-up bluing and various things. In all okay, basically all right, just needs a little bit of a clean-up. So without much ado, we need to get into this and strip this polyurethane coating off so that I can start staining and oiling. I need to grind this down. Where do I start, guys? It's what do you do? Where do you start with this? There's all sorts of things to do on it. I'll have to pick one and start, won't I? I'll have to pick one. We'll do that first. So what we're going to do is strip that, but while I'm at it, might as well strip and prepare the stock at the same time so that we can get the same kind of finish. Oh, tight screws, not good. I'll be back. They're always a bit of a struggle to take off, but done it. Action off. Stock off. Strip down the a bit loose. Right. You do find things as you go. That's always the case with these. It's never quite what you expect. Anyway, we'll just keep working. These are almost retained. These are flipping the 9. There you go. 1 and 2. Fiddly little things. Right. Drop that out. So I have got to do some work on here. As you can see, it's scored up. And just make sure these aren't going to pop out on me. These have a habit of sliding out if you're not careful, because it's not actually retained, see? So if you suddenly discover you've got a bit missing, that's why. And just check that's not going to move on me. No, it's fine. And as you can see, it's inlet quite a lot in some places. Not a lot left on there. Anyway, there you go. So that's ready for stripping. So we're going to strip them both so that we can get them to match up. Okay, it's a bit thixotropic, so got to get this on. It's been sitting around a while, so it's going to be a bit slower in activating, but it will work for sure. Just got to stipple it on there. It always works, it just doesn't look so special because it's an old pot and it's a mess. So there we go. just is the way it is. So this is like a polyurethane finish that the Brownings had. Later on, the 78 also had a rather rubbishy varnish as well, but later on they really went for this polymer style, which is truly horrible. Production costs, I suppose. This is just a bit on the thick side, so it's going to take a while for this to work properly. So we'll be coming back to this for sure. There we go. Yuck. Oop. The pot's been standing around for a while, so it does take a minute. Right, that will have to be left. Right, this won't be such an issue because this is probably an oil finish. And as such, this will probably come up a bit easier. So, because I'm going to be grinding the pad to match. Oh. Right, so we've got a nice mess here now. Gungy mess. So, right, so here's the thing, what happens. It always tightens up because of all the mass of wood is now wet on the outside and not on the inside. So I have soaked it on the inside to try and counteract that. Doesn't always work. It just needs to be allowed to thoroughly dry before we do any more work. And obviously I've got a big cleanup on the bench to do as well. So it's not great at the moment. It's not. There's still some patches I'm going to be cleaning up. Needs to be allowed to dry thoroughly before we can get started on the staining. And there's still some stubborn areas here too. But there it is. You'll remember I said to you, you've got to slip that back in. It's a bit harder now. Right, so been playing around with this. This is super tight, so it's swollen beyond measure. So I'm going to let that dry. While I'm doing that, I'm just going to clean up some of this checkering. Okay, so I've detailed both sides now, and there's still some stains and things in there, so I'm going to have to try and improve on that. And let's just see what we can do with the stain. Get the stain done and matched to the stock. So let's see what we're going to do on there. So as you see, there's some nice grain figure in there that this lacks. So I'm going to have to try and improve, match that somewhat. But first, I'm just going to try a light stain. See what that can do for us. So it's been a few days and this has dried out nicely, fits on the barrel nicely, so we can start working on the preparation for the finishing. We've got some bluing to do, we've got a few other little bits and pieces to do, grind the pad to match. Eventually this would be a lovely job. So you can see that this pad's been fitted, but badly. I'm not saying more about that. It might have been my customer that did it, I don't know. But we're going to grind that to fit, and it's the pad he wants to keep, so this is one of the policies that I have. I don't try to force people to spend more money. If they want to keep that pad, they keep that pad. It's not my business to tell them otherwise. And that's what the kind of customer likes my work. So grind that off. Do I need to show you guys? You've seen that before, haven't you? Probably I'll show you a few snippets of grinding that off then. Okay, so some of the observant among you will have noticed that I've ground it down to the wood again, so that gives an aesthetic pleasing appearance. But some of you may be alarmed to see that I actually touched on there. So this is something I used to show my apprentice, what happens when you touch on. So yeah, in haste of doing the job and trying to get the camera, watching the camera, not watching the job. Epic fail. Well, I'm going to show you how easy that is to fix, actually. So it's not that big a deal. It just needs a bit of a polish and work that through. No problem. Looks terrible. It's not that bad. But we'll get on to it now. Okay, quick wipe with some solvent. Just to make sure that that's okay, and it is, it's fine. At this point, I'm not going to want to take off the pad, because I may want to feather it in with that pad to make it match. Look how much cleaner that is already. So yeah, okay, so I've got to put a bit more stain back on. Hey ho, whatever. It matters not at the end of the day. We can get a nice finish on this gun. Deepen the stain again, not a problem. Doesn't freak me out. My customer gets a price for the job, so I don't worry about having to ask him for more money, because there isn't any forthcoming, because I do price for the jobs. On occasion there are developments, and of course then I need to go back to my client and then rediscuss what we want to do, and I use this video format to do it just the same. See, it's deepening up beautifully. I'm not touching on the wood, on the pad too much, so it's not a problem. But you see how quickly that's restored back to beauty. Take that away, it's got a bit of sand paper on it, sanding dust on it, so very quickly bring that back. I will probably do a few more passes between other jobs because I've got other jobs running, so I'm always trying to pick up where I left off from a previous job. Sometimes you have to put them back in the rack and let them dry, just as this one will be, but I have moved forward. I've got that part of the job done, so no harm, no foul. And you know, I could spend hours and hours doing it carefully, or in a few minutes, if I make a mistake, correct it. It's not that big a deal. And again, looks lovely again. Let that dry and on to the next stage. Meanwhile, I'll crack on with a bit on the fore-end. So fore-end, going to need a little bit of camera. I'm always bashing the camera, you know what I'm like. This is real-time work, it's not staged or anything. So touch of the old 5-0 wire wool, and I'm just going to burnish out the fibres that will have lifted from the staining and the stripping and all that messy work we had to do. Obviously, if you remember, I've cleaned up the checkering. That was on me. I didn't price for that. I just thought it wanted doing, and because I offer a price for the job, I will, on my own conscience, decide to do things that weren't part of the job. Most customers, in fact, when I say most, very much, pretty much all of them, are never dismayed if I've done an extra bit of work. I've never been told off for it, put it that way. Because at the end of the day, it's about the job as a whole, not, you know, counting pennies. And the thing is, this particular customer, I've given him a progress report. He's absolutely over the moon with what I'm doing with this gun already, and he hasn't seen the finished job. But he's already got another job he's dropping off to me when I pick this one up. So, all right, so that's burnished. There's a few end grain issues there, like this just here. Oops, camera. Just need to give that a bit of a hard polish there. There we go, that's better, good. Okay, so I put the fore-end steel back in because this, as you remember, was so soaked up from the stripper, it wouldn't close up again, so I popped it back on again so that I could get the form over the barrels. And 2 seconds, I will go and get the screwdriver I need. Is that it there? Could be. Could it be that good? Yeah, there it is. So, as part of the jobs, I quite often reassemble it all, make sure it's all working, even halfway through the job. It's not to add time, believe you me, I don't need to make work for myself. But I'm certainly not going to be tight with a customer just because I'm clock watching. It's just not what I do. In fact, all my customers appreciate that. They know that they don't pay for everything I do. But repeat work is always very much welcomed. I'm still quite tight. There we go. Right, so we're now ready to clean this up a bit. Put the first coat of seal on it just to deepen it, and see where we go. Cotton-based kitchen roll is all you need. We're not doing French polishing. and there's no need to have all these highly combustible rags around linseed and shellac sealer and stuff like that. Just no need for it. So I'm not French polishing, I'm using French polishing products to seal. Because most of it gets burnished off again. But it does make for a nice finish. Right, so that's improving, as we see. I will leave that to dry, and then I will burnish that down again, which then lifts the colour. So it's a bit like varnishing, sanding, sort of thing. But it's definitely there, getting there already. Now we could probably have a little look at this stock now while we're at it. Do the same to this stock that's been allowed to dry. Yeah, that's dry. So same technique. it's actually looking okay. There's a slight tendency with that. Is that grain or is that dwell mark? Could be the both, couldn't it? Could be both. We'll see how it turns out. Need to take the stock off now, which also means taking the pad off, so need to crack on with that. Now that fits nicely. So I'm doing that off camera. It gets boring me taking stocks apart. Don't need to do all that, do we? See you in a minute, guys. Okay, so now we can do a proper job. Just going to put a little bit of wire wool over that, just because I can feel there's a few fibres there. There's a bit I had prepared earlier, and a good Blue Peter tradition. Don't know if that's still going, is it? I'm not happy with that finish. I'm seeing that it's building up again, so I'm showing that. So I'm going to need to do that again. And there's a touch on this side as well. So that needs to go. So we will put this to one side to let it dry. And I will correct that off camera because it's not going to add to the content. But you can see how that is now showing. Sometimes I do this as the disclosure. There's an existing dent there. That's got just a bit of a blemish still showing through, so I will do this again because that's my screw up touching on there. They will be done again. So let that dry and I'll come back to that. Okay, so no blemishes now, so all good. And just a light wire wool to make sure there's no fibres there before. Then we're going to quickly seal it as before. Light stroke, quick strokes, just to get that sealed. It's already pulling. It always drags a little bit of the dye that you put on, which is natural. It's important to seal it though. There we go, that's already gone, that's dried already. So, I would use a drop of oil. That's to stop it pulling because it will stick to the pad, like so. Got to be worked in quite quickly, otherwise you'll be working against yourself. Oh. Flaming phone every 10 minutes. Right, so that's a classic example. I get a random phone call from some geezer who wants to talk to me for hours about his gun. Of course, I'm in the middle of a job. And my website clearly says use WhatsApp to communicate because I can do that out of hours. And obviously their job's important to them. So they want to talk about it at great length. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute, mate. I've got stuff going on here. This stock isn't just going to wait. I've got to keep going. So I don't have any secretary to answer my calls either. So frustrating to say the least. So, right, so I've just, the oil is actually a means by which you can burnish that sealant. And if it needs it or warrants it, I will go over it again with wire wool. And it'll be all good. But for now, that's just to be left there to nourish that wood. customer's looking forward to seeing this back again, actually. I've actually put a bit too much on there, so I'm just going to rub that off again. Some of this will have to come off with some wire wool, I suspect. But we'll just see how we go. Doesn't look too bad though, so just build up that satin sheen and it'll be okay. I need to let that dry for a minute and go and take my dog for a walk because she needs to stretch her legs as well as other things, if you know what I mean. Right, so now I need to make sure that I've knocked back all of those. You can hear it there, those fibres. You can hear them being picked up. That's shiny. That's fibres. Obviously, because it's had stripper, it needs a lot of nourishing. So it really does soak up all of that good stuff. Quite a lot of oil there. It's got a waxy feeling about it right now. Yeah, let that dry for a bit, burnish it a bit more with my hands. So this could do with a drop more. Yeah. Right. So I need to put a little bit of nourishment into the checkering, but not overly greased up would be bad. So this just makes it pop. A little bit of oil. It's a little bit soaked in there, a bit too much, but we will work that through. Been dogs barking again. Good. So yeah, it looks counterintuitive because we've got oil back in it again now. But what I generally do is then wrap my toothbrush, not the one I use myself, but the toothbrush I use. And I just quickly scrub over that with a cloth. If I can keep hold of the cloth, that is. Using the bristles to push the cloth down and lift out any of the excess. So that it's got a seal of oil, but not excessive. There you go, it does lift out, but so. You don't want to return to the gummed up experience that was there before. Obviously this had a lot of urethane, so it does clean up the crap out of it again. So just rub that over there, make sure there's no excess film. I'll do the same. So you can take off the excess and then burnish it up. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. So you don't, it's less is more, but you've got to get it on first. So the need is to put it on and then remove the excess. Otherwise you get a sticky gel. And this is where some people over egg the pudding, so to speak, and end up with a sticky gun. There, now that will dry and it will look half decent. And more importantly, they look about right colour wise together. Bearing in mind that the fore end was nothing to do with the stock originally. Nice one. So I need to pop the stock back. The action's okay in this case, it's actually pretty clean. So again, a full strip down service was not on the cards. It wasn't part of the customer's requirements. Off camera, I'm just popping the stock bolt in. It's the slot head on this. It keeps trying to come off. Right, that's tight. There we go. Just got to screw this on. You don't need to see that again, surely. And that looks all right. That's not bad at all. So that's what the customer required there. So that's looking nice. There's a scar there, but you know, I'm not going to completely restore this. It's just a stock cleanup. So slide that back into place. Thereabouts. While this is out, I probably want to give this a little clean. Yeah, that's okay. Now, it might seem counterintuitive, but I can touch this up on the stock. Just gives me something to clean up, something to handle. It'll be fine. Right. Right, so we're going to need a couple of bits. I'm going to need a dab of acetone. Use that out of my pickling jar, I think. Be fine. And just degrease those items there. It's going to be on display. And you can see there's rust and dirt and stain and goodness knows what. That's probably coming off my fingers actually. Just realised. That's quite funny. Again, this is just a touch up. It's not a full bluing. It's just to give it a cosmetic improvement. But you don't leave it looking worse than it came here. That's certainly not the idea. Okay, so using some of the cold blue compound, some of the bluing salts, the quick black solution. This is a mixture of different things in their pickle. Right. And I think you can see instantly the improvement that's had. Just to make that looking absolutely lovely again. Look at that. Lovely. That's why I'm not overly worried about doing too much work. As you can see, this does not replace a full blue, but it does give you the cosmetic advantage of tidying up the gun. Just need to put a dab more on there. Neutralise this with oil. In this case, to hand. What is to hand is some nice linseed oil, which will be fine. Traditionally used throughout the centuries. In fact, I use it on all the reenactment guns. It was the go-to oil, and it was used in various different applications. So there we go. There's a little bit of muck there as well. Something going on there. Notice there's a funny mark. Somebody's been whacking it, but not something I can really take care of, really, because everything's work. All work is done to a price. Right, I did forget to put some bluing agent on the release catch. There we go. Right. Now you might think, why is he using the same oil? Because this is actually just linseed oil. You can use mineral oils too, but you do actually get a nice finish with linseed oil. And the organic nature of it neutralises and stops the bluing action. So it doesn't look too bad. And there is a sort of grey blue colour to that. So it's not like we haven't done anything. It's just that you can't tell the difference now, which is the whole point kind of thing, really. So persevere with that. Just finish that with some oil. Yeah, somebody actually messaged me in the comments, what kind of oil do you use? You can use any number of different mineral oils. But good old vegetable oil like boiled linseed will work. The beauty of the boiled linseed, it's got drying agents in it, so it will allow it to create a wax finish, which is quite pleasing and nice to feel. Nice feel factor. Right, so there you go. That looks already all right. Not bad at all. So now just got to pop this all back together again. I've put the retaining nut, if you will, back in there. And that's aligned. Get the right screws. Right, so this is probably the final time we'll be popping these in, because we can do the rest in a semi-assembled state. Oh, I've just seen a burr there with the old varnish trying to stay attached. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so from now on in, these can be all touched up, and doesn't that look much better now? They can all be touched up on the gun, so to speak, because most of that work is already done. I need to go and check the customer's job list, what he was asking for, just to ensure that we've done everything he's wanted. That being the main one, because it wasn't matching that in the slightest, and it looks a lot closer now. I'm going to find out what's upsetting my dog. Okay, well, beautiful. Yeah, that's not bad. So that pretty much concludes this particular job, because a lot of the work will be just daily oiling this now until it's fully up to scratch. But there you go, nice bit of checkering. Cleaned up the checkering, stock and oil finish, so they look the same now, which is nice. And a few touch-ups there too. So there we go, guys. Cheers.